Alright, so how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another video here on the channel. Today we're going to be answering a question using the NHL 20 simulation engine. And that is, what is the best franchise of all time? So there's tons of alumni players that have been added to NHL 20, so we went ahead and substituted them all into a season mode. But that's not it. We also took current day players on the team and added them to the all-time team. That being said, there's certain legends of teams like Jerome McGinley on Calgary, Pavel Bure on Vancouver, Maurice Richard on Montreal, to name a few, that aren't in the game for licensing rights. So unfortunately, not all the top players are going to be on these teams. That being said, there's still a decent chunk of very good legends that are from NHL past and current day superstars of NHL present that compile these teams. So here's what it looks like. Here's all the overalls. You can pause the video and see for yourself. A couple noteworthy teams that I would like to point out is the Montreal Canadiens coming in at 100 overall, Detroit at a 99, Toronto at a 97, the Kings at a 97, the Oilers at a 96, the Avs at a 96, St. Louis at a 98, to name a few. So in this video, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going over the rosters very quickly so you can see how your favorite team stacks up with all-time and current players, running a season simulation, running a playoff simulation, and basically seeing who wins the cup. So before this video starts, I want you guys to go comment down in the comment section before you even see any of the lineups who you think is going to take home the Stanley Cup. My bet is on the Detroit Red Wings because their team is very even all throughout the board. Alright, so since we have a lot of teams, we're going to do this fairly quickly, going over notable players like Yari Curry and Teemu Selanne here on the Ducks. Keep in mind, if you do want to see your favorite team in depth, just pause the video, and that's that. So there's the offense for the Ducks. Defense of Niedermayer and Prager, obviously. In net for them, John Gibson starting it. Next up, the Coyotes, Jeremy Roenick, Mike Gartner, Phil Kessel there on a first line. Defensively, OEL and Teppo Numminen on your first line. And in net is Curtis Joseph. Next up, the Boston Bruins. Pretty much the same team on the first line as they would current day NHL. They're definitely missing a few players, but it doesn't matter. They're still an insane overall team. There's the defense for them, and Tuukka Rask starting in the net. Buffalo, another team that gets a giant boost here. They have legends all throughout forward core. Defensively, they're also really solid. And in net, they have a really good starting goaltender. Carolina, a little bit iffy as they're an expansion team, so they don't have a lot of alumni to go through, but still notable player there in Paul Coffey. And there is the two goalies for them. Columbus is another one of those teams that doesn't really have a crazy amount of alumni players in the game that are very good. But again, that's because they are a fairly new team to the NHL. Matthew Guérin is their starting goalie. Now, Calgary is definitely missing a few players like Iginla, Phaneuf, to name a few, but still a very good team overall. I expect this team to do well in the playoffs and go far. Mike Vernon starting in net for them. Chicago is a team that's definitely missing players, but again, has just a really good overall team there. There's the defense for the Blackhawks, and in net, they have some studs of Glenn Hall and Ed Belfour. Next up, probably one of the most overpowered teams here in the simulation, the Colorado Avalanche. As you can see, I don't even need to go into depth. You can just look at that first line there and just understand they're going to tear things up defensively. Also a very good team. And in net, starting for them, none other than the best goalie of all time, Patrick Waugh. The Dallas Stars up next, and yeah, you know, they're not a bad team. They definitely have some help from the current day NHL players that they have on their roster. In net, though, they do have another legend, two actually, with Ed Belfour and Marty Turco. Now, the Red Wings are the second best team in the simulation here, and you can see why. Not even going to go into depth. Gordie Howe there, Mr. Hockey on the first line. Ted Lindsay, Robitaille, Yzerman. I don't need to go anymore. Datsuk down there on the third line. Nick Lidstrom, Paul Coffey is the first pairing. And in net, Terry Sawchuk starting things off with Glenn Hall backing him up. Of course, now you have the Edmonton Oilers, Wayne Gretzky, Connor McDavid on the same team, on the same power play. That is going to be absolutely insane to see. Defensively, also just incredible. Chris Pronger and Paul Coffey there. In net for the Oilers, though, is none other than Grant Fuhr. The Panthers up next, they have a decent team. You know, Jaromir Jagr at a 93 overall there. They're another team that hasn't been around for a super long time, so they don't have a stalwart lineup of players. Mike Vernon in net for them with Ed Belfour backing them up. Hopefully next year we can get to see Roberto Luongo on the all-time Panthers team. Next up, the LA Kings, and they are another team that's stacked, mostly because of this guy right here, the great one, Wayne Gretzky. So you can go through the offense, their defense, they're also very good as well. And in net for them starting things off is John Quick. Minnesota, again, is one of the teams that's kind of like this. It's kind of iffy, just because, again, team that has been around for very long in the NHL, so they don't have a bunch of guys to go through. Dubnyk is going to be starting in net for them. Don't expect them to do very well. The best team in the simulation here is the Montreal Canadiens, and you can see why. They don't have the lowest guy on their forward core is Max Domi at an 86 overall. It's absolutely nuts. Defensively, an 84 overall is their lowest guy on the D-core. He's usually a top 4 on any current-day NHL team. Patrick Waugh and Jacques Plante in net, with Carey Price as the third-string goalie. Keep that in mind. He's the third-string goalie in Montreal. Now the Devils up next. They have a very good first line there, as you can probably see already. Scott Niedermayer, PK Subban would be a treat. The unfortunate thing, though, is Sean Burke is their starting goalie because Martin Brodeur is not in the game. Things might go a little bit different for the Devils if he was. The Nashville Predators up next. Again, another team that joined the league fairly recently, so they don't have a star-studded lineup of guys. Very confused why Ryan Suter is not on the all-time list. But Pekka Rinne starting in between the pipes. With the absence of Mike Bossy, the Islanders just don't feel the same. But it doesn't matter because they still have a very good, very sick team. So I do expect the Islanders to go pretty deep here in the simulation. Billy Smith starting it for them. Another great team here is the New York Rangers. As you can see, Wayne Gretzky, Jaromir Jagr, and Artemi Panarin. So this is like the second or third Gretzky that is in the simulation. There's 4 of them, and that's just absolutely nuts. But yeah, 4 Gretzkys. This is a very good team. So the second worst, or one of the worst teams, is the Ottawa Senators. They're definitely missing key players like Daniel Alfredson and Danny Heatley. Very confused as to why they haven't been able to get the rights of those guys yet. But hey, I don't work for EA, so I don't know. Broad Street Bullies definitely look that way on paper. They have just some incredible players here. That's definitely going to be hard to go up against these guys. They're going to be throwing the body like crazy. And Bernie Parent with Ron Hextall in net. Wouldn't this be a treat of a first line? Not only that, but just Mario Lemieux and Sidney Crosby both playing in their prime together. And Malkin and Jagr, insane. Pittsburgh Penguins have an insane team. It's going to be a treat getting to see what they're able to do together. Marc-Andre Fleury starting it between the pipes for them. Now, the Vegas' replacement in this, because again, they're like a 2-year-old franchise, I decided to go with the Quebec Nordiques because out of the 3 teams that are available, so Quebec, Minnesota, and Hartford, this team has the best players on it. So Matt Sundin, Sakic, Lafleur for first line, just unreal. Defensively, they could have used a couple better players on defense, but they just, again, rights is hard to get. Ron Hextall starting for these guys. San Jose, Owen Nolan, I feel should be a little bit higher than an 86 on the Sharks, but what do I know? There's the forward line for the San Jose Sharks. Defensively, very, very, very good. And in net, Mike Vernon and Ed Belfour. The last Wayne Gretzky is playing on the line with Brett Hull and Vladimir Tarasenko. How could anything get better for St. Louis Blues fan? Answer, defensive core. That's how things gotta get better for the Blues fans. They have lowest overall D is an 85. Glenn Hall starting things in net for. Tampa Bay is another absolutely sweet team there. Stamkos centering St. Louis and Kucherov, just like it was. So Hedman and Ryan McDonough there as the first pairing. They have a lot of current guys on the team just because of how good their current team is. Now the Toronto Maple Leafs are adding Mitch Marner, Matthews, and Tavares to their line of already stacked alumni. Matt Sundin down there is the second line winner. Morgan Riley there on defense. And in net for these guys is the late Johnny Bower. So Vancouver is definitely missing a bunch of really key players on their franchise. Messier is not on there. Both the Sedins aren't there. Bertuzzi isn't there. Bure isn't there. And that's why they're kind of a lower overall team, which is kind of unfortunate because they have a lot of very good alumni players that just aren't in the game. So with the Winnipeg Jets alumni, you could technically put them on the all-time Arizona list because the Arizona Coyotes are technically the Winnipeg Jets old franchise. But you know what? They had an all-time team. So I said, screw it. The Jets are going to go back to the Jets. So this team is unreal. Laine, Solani, Howardchuk. First line, that's all that needs to be said there. Defensively, also very, very, very good. And in net for them is Connor Hellebuck. Finally, the last team here, Washington Capitals. Ovi, Kuznetsov, Jagr. What a first freaking line. This team is going to be an absolute insane treat to watch. I am super excited to see what Ovi can do with having 2 guys like that on his line, and Braden Holtby is going to be starting things in net for him. So you guys have seen all the teams. Let me know what you think after seeing the rosters, who you think is going to win the Stanley Cup now. So what we're going to do next is the season simulation, look at how the teams finished, and look at the player points. So we will see you guys at the end of the season. So the season is complete, and these are the teams that made the playoffs. So in the Pacific Division, we have the Oilers with 118 points, the Kings with 106, the Nordiques with 103, and the Flames with 79, which is interesting how they made the playoffs. I guess because those three teams were so dominant, everybody else in the division kind of felt the wrath. Into the Central, though, we had the Avalanche putting up 104 points, the Blues with 101, the Jets with 90, and the Stars with 89. In the Atlantic, the Red Wings run away with it with 120 points in the regular season. Absolutely incredible. 57 wins, 19 losses, 6 overtime losses. Next up, the Canadiens with 111 points. The Maple Leafs put up 109 points, the Sabres with 99, and the Panthers with 91. And in the Metro, the Penguins had 115, the Caps had 107, and the Devils had 96. So here is your season-ending stats for 82 games played. So 115 points goes to the great one, Wayne Gretzky on the St. Louis Blues. Brett Hull had 106 right behind him, as well as 97 on the Dallas Stars. So he takes the 2 and 3 spot, Tarasenko behind. So the first line for the Blues lit it up all year. Easily the best performing line in the NHL. Mark Messier there. The Rangers, Wayne Gretzky, Guy Lafleur of the Nordiques, Trottier, John Beliveau. We're going to keep just going down the list so you guys can see how points worked out for people there. So we're going to go down to about 70 points here, and then after that, it doesn't really matter all that much. Brett Hull and Wayne Gretzky both tied for goals with 50. Gretzky also had 47. Ovechkin right behind him with 44, but he also put up a 43 and a 42 spot along the way. For assists, he definitely took that one with 68. Mark Messier had 66 on his Oilers team. Brett Hull had 65 on the Blues. Paul Coffey there had 64 on the Hurricanes. The most penalty minutes went to Bob Probert, Brian McGrattan, and Darren McCarty, which honestly, I'm quite surprised that penalty minutes are actually pretty low, like 109 there, 103. That's pretty low for the season. So the highest shooting percentage, this is always a stat that I love to look at because it's a fun little one. So you had to play at least 20 games to be considered for this stat. So with a 20% shooting percentage, Josh Bailey would score on 1 of every 5 shots he took, which is just crazy. And he took 99 shots there at the season. So in that there, Patrick Waugh actually comes up as the #1 winning goaltender with 44 wins, 19 losses, and 6 overtime losses, with Glenn Hall 43, 25, and 3 right behind him. And so this is basically how everything else lines up the rest of the way down the league. So the highest save percentage with 40 games started goes to Patrick Waugh, the Montreal Canadiens version, with a 921. That's the rest of the stats for that. The highest goals against average, though, went to Kirk McLean, who put up a 357. Ty Coughlin was not far behind him with a 349. Jacob Markstrom, 341. So obviously you can see the lower tier teams got lit up. So here we have the playoff tree. This is what it looks like. We have some great matchups already that I can see of. So we're going to start in the West and move our way to the East. In the first round, we have St. Louis playing Winnipeg, Colorado playing Dallas, LA playing Quebec, and the Battle of Alberta in the first round, the Oilers playing the Flames. In the East, we have the Devils playing the Capitals, the Penguins playing the Sabres, Toronto playing Montreal. That's going to be an absolute fantastic series to see, and Detroit playing Florida. So let me know who you guys think is going to win the Stanley Cup, and we will see you when the playoffs are over. So there you have it. The Pittsburgh Penguins alumni are the Stanley Cup champions. Let's take a look at how the playoffs. So in the West, St. Louis 1-7 over Winnipeg, Dallas 1-7 over Colorado, LA 1-6 over Quebec, and Calgary beats Edmonton in 5, which I'm absolutely blown away by. In the East, New Jersey swept Washington, Pittsburgh beat Buffalo in 6, Montreal beat Toronto in 6, and Detroit swept Florida. Going back to the West, St. Louis 1-7 against Dallas, and LA beat Calgary in 5. Pittsburgh and New Jersey had a sweaty series going 7, but Pittsburgh came out on top. Montreal walked over Detroit, which is interesting. 5 games there, meaning the conference finals for the West was St. Louis, LA, LA, and Pittsburgh, Montreal. Both went 6 games, with St. Louis and Pittsburgh advancing, and the Stanley Cup final only lasted 5 games. Crosby, Lemieux, Malkin, and Jágr were obviously too much for anybody to handle. They won the Stanley Cup. So obviously, Pittsburgh won the Cup, Detroit won the President's Trophy, St. Louis won the Clarence S. Campbell Bowl, and the Pittsburgh Penguins won the Prince of Wales Trophy. Gretzky on the St. Louis Blues won the Art Ross. He also won the Hart, and the James Norris went to Paul Coffey. The Lady Byng went to Gretzky. The Calder went to Colin White. The Conn Smythe went to Fleury. The Vezina went to Johnny Bower. The William N. Jennings went to Patrick Waugh. Bill Masterson went to Pronger. The Selke went to Ryan O'Reilly. The Ted Lindsay went to Gretzky. And the Maurice Richard went to Gretzky. So Gretzky cleaned up the NHL awards, basically winning every trophy that he possibly could, which is definitely interesting to see, but I'm not surprised. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it and had a little bit of fun with it. I think that it was neat to see. Definitely did not think Pittsburgh was going to win the Cup, though. I thought for sure it was going to be either Detroit or Montreal. So interesting that Pittsburgh was able to pull it off. Clearly they had something going on there with Crosby, Lemieux, Malkin, and Jágr. So I'm shocked. I'm definitely shocked, but hey, I love seeing outcomes like this because they're definitely not what I would have expected. So hopefully you guys did enjoy the video. If you did, definitely be sure to leave a like, comment down in the video if you thought that Pittsburgh was going to win the Cup and you were right, or if you're just as shocked as I was. And like always, guys, if you have ideas for videos in the future that you want me to do, leave them down in the comments and we'll make sure that they happen. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, what are you waiting for? You may as well do that right now and turn on post notifications so you don't miss an upload like this going forward. So once again, guys, I want to thank you guys for being here today with me, for taking time out of your day and having a little bit of fun with NHL 20 to see what NHL 20 thinks is the best franchise of all time. So thank you for watching, guys, and we will talk to you next time.